Okay, hi. This is Sashi Bigor, the Vice Chair of the Parks and Rec Commission. I'm sitting in for Mina, our chair, Mina Ju for our chair. It is 6:04 and I call this meeting to order. So the first order of business for us will be roll call.
All right. Commissioner Swamy?
Present.
Commissioner Stanek?
Here.
And Vice Chair Bigor?
Here.
All right. So we do have a quorum with just Chair Shu and Commissioner Kumar upon absent.
Okay. Do we have any oral communication? There are a lot of participants in our meeting today.
Yep. Approval of minutes would be first.
Okay, because I was following the... All right, let's go to the approval of minutes. I guess I wasn't. So anybody has any opinions on the minutes from last time?
No comment.
Sorry, Carol, go ahead.
I have no comments or changes. I can make a motion to approve the minutes of October 6, 2022.
Okay. Stephen, do you have any concerns or comments? Okay, Carol, go ahead and make that motion.
Oh, okay. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of October 6, 2022 of the Parks and Recreation Commission.
I second that.
Right. So do we go around the room, Jessica, and figure it out?
Yes, we will take a vote now. All right. Commissioner Swamy?
I approve.
Commissioner Stanek?
Yes.
And Vice Chair Bigor?
I approve.
Motion passes with 3 yes and 2 absent.
Okay, so then we go on to any kind of oral communications. Where am I? There we go. I'm looking at the attendees and I don't see anybody raising their hand at this point. So then do we have any written communications?
No written communications tonight.
Okay. If we go to our first topic, that is under an update to the Joint Commission. Sorry. Where go? Just a second. Give me a minute. I'm looking. The topic on this is the Lawrence Mitty. So we start with your update, Rochelle.
So Susan Michael, our CIP manager, is here to introduce the item.
Good evening, commissioners. I am Susan Michael, the CIP manager, and we're here. John Raymakers and I are the project managers on the Lawrence Mitty Park and Trail Plan project. It's a CIP project, and we also have our team, the designers from MIG, Jan Eisland and Marina Oritz here, and so I'm going to turn it over to them to go through the slides. I will say that tonight what we're here to do is to share our updates on the project. We've gone through the initial design phase. We developed 3 design alternatives and have gotten community input from that on those designs. If you go to engagecupertino.org, you'll see the design alternatives, and we're also going to share them tonight. And you can see the survey that was up and all sorts of great things that we've been doing on the project. So tonight, the objective is to share the results of the community input and share our takeaways from that and let you know what option we're going to be designing to and get your input on that before we go too far down the road. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jan.
All right, great. Thank you, Susan. And you pretty much covered the agenda. So I will get to first thing is the project overview. We've met with you all before, so this is going to be really brief. We're just going to do a super quick recap of how we got to where we are today. You may remember that we presented our technical site analysis from phase 1, and then also the community visioning that we did in phase 2. And now we're here presenting those design alternatives that we developed in phase 3 and what we heard from the community on those. So you all are pretty familiar with this project by now. It all started with a need for more park space on the east side of Cupertino, and you can see our site here on the screen on the very far right, sandwiched between the Saratoga Creek and the Lawrence Expressway. And here's just a zoom in on the site. It's about a half-mile long and some photos of the existing conditions there at the site. So just to recap, phase 1, we took those existing conditions, looked at them closely in our technical site analysis to really understand what's feasible for this site, how we can address, it does have its challenges, how we can address those, and how we can also make the most of its opportunities. And then the phase 2, we led a community visioning effort to really understand what the community wanted to see here at this site, because this park is ultimately for them. And that really brings us to where we are today. We took that feedback and that analysis, and it led us to 3 design alternatives that were shared with the community over throughout the month of October in various ways. So based on what we heard, we didn't want to make 3 competing alternatives. We wanted to make sure that all of the alternatives had those features that were most important to the community vision. So you'll see differences in the alternatives, but there are definitely some commonalities in all of them too. So in all of them, we have this emphasis on biking, walking, play, nature, and the creek. And in all of them, we extend the multi-use trail to the north edge of the park site. And then we also allow for a future connection further north outside of the park. And then we also include walking trails that are separated from the bikes, because that was a widespread concern, making sure there was separation. And then all of them have comfort and safety features, things like seating. There are varying ways sound wall or fencing is treated in each design. And we included an emergency phone. And then all of them have extensive planting, so more shade trees and more native plantings along the creek. So then on top of all those baseline features, each concept that you're about to see next has more of a unique focus for those additional features. So we're working within a budget, so there's cost trade-offs. And so we're showing what we showed the community different ways that we could develop the park. And so then we went to them to hear, what are their priorities? So then we can really maximize what the park's benefits are to the community, but also stay within the budget, of course. So here's concept A. We call this one Wheel Fun because it really goes in on the all in on the bike features, which was a natural fit given that this site really gets accessed by bicycles from multiple directions and doesn't have a lot of parking options. And so this is each concept has photos and a diagram on the first sheet, and then the second sheet really goes into detail on the plan, and you can see all the features labeled with photos. So in Wheel Fun on the north end, you can see there's a small to mid-size BMX skills course meant for teens and adults. And then there's also seating and walking paths and exercise stations around that north end so that people who don't want to do the bike activities also have things to do there. And then you'll see in the middle, there's an arrow pointing to Sterling Barnhart. This concept provides a single user restroom there. And then if you look on the left side of the page at the south end, this is the part that has the existing trail already through it. We've added some features in this one. It has a small bicycle pump track for younger kids. And that would just be a small trail that weaves through the trees. And then there are new walking trails, fitness stations, and small nature play elements that will also appeal to all ages and those that are not into biking. So that's concept A. And concept B, we call Story Trail. And this is more of a nature experience with more trails and interpretive features. And this concept really makes the most of that creekside setting we have here. And it's really like the most wild, least developed of the three alternatives. You can see that it has extensive planted area and tree cover, and it highlights the bioretention areas by weaving them into the path network using little small footbridges to cross. So really maximizing the nature. It also includes an enhanced deck overlook near the creek, also nature play elements, and including a dry creek bed that's meant for kids to walk around in and explore. Both the south and north areas of the site in this one offer new walking trails and interpretive elements that could be centered on the site's history and environmental education. And then the third concept is concept C, Play It Up. And this one's main features are really focused on play, fitness, and flexible open space. And this one is really like more intensely programmed in the north end. It packs a lot in there, providing play and fitness features that kind of build on what's already offered at Sterling Barnhart, which is kind of a small footprint. So this one allows you to offer a little bit bigger features for the older kids. And you can see in the plan here, the play elements that are included are a net climber geared more towards ages 5 to 12, basket swings that really work for singles, doubles, and all ages. Like I've seen tots on there, grandparents, all ages, and then also a log scramble for nature play. Also on this plan are fitness stations that are placed around a loop path that surrounds a flexible lawn space. And then also like concept A, this one has a single user restroom at Sterling Barnhart Park. And then because we packed so much in the north end on this one has a much more simple approach to the south end. It just has a simple extra side path for pedestrians. So that's the three concepts, a lot to get through, but that's what we brought to the community. And now I'm going to pass it to Myrna, and she can tell you what we heard from them all.
Great. Thank you, Jen. Good evening, everyone. So we'll share with you what we heard from the community. We brought the three concepts to them, both in person and online through various events. So the first in-person event was a pop-up event at the library, and we were able to engage with families, with younger children and teenagers. And concept B, Story Trail, was the most popular from that activity. In our second in-person event at the actual site, we allowed people to come and experience the location and give us their feedback there. In this event, we heard that concept C was the most popular. They wanted Play It Up and have more of the nature play features for all ages. And then in the final event with the community, this was a virtual community meeting with a smaller sample size. Concept B was also the most popular from this one based on the online polling that we did during the meeting. We also hosted an online survey for the month of October, and we received over 370 responses. About 78% of them were from Cupertino residents, and you can see the breakdown here of the different neighborhoods that they represent, primarily those neighboring the site, and then a few residents from West San Jose also responded to the survey. And in the next couple of slides, we'll go through what we heard. So for each of the concepts, we asked the community what were their preferred features. As you saw in those earlier slides, what were those photos or elements that they thought were their favorite. And so for concept A, the creekside bench overlook and nature play elements came up top for preferred features. For concept B, the story trail concept, they agreed that creekside deck overlook, so a similar type of overlook or an expanded natural area were their favorites. For concept C, Play It Up, the creekside bench overlooks, again, these were really popular across the three concepts, as well as play area features were rose to the top. Here you're seeing a comparison of all the features across the three concepts, and we wanted to just show you, regardless of what concept people were selecting, here were the favorite features that came to to the top. So the Creekside Bench overlooks, you'll see is twice on here, just because it showed up in concept A and C, and it was popular in both of those. We also asked participants who responded to let us know what their least important feature was across the different concepts. And so here you're seeing that comparison. The bike skills course and the bike pump track were the least important. So you're seeing those at the bottom. And then when they had to vote between A, B, or C, again, Story Trail, similar to our in-person events, Story Trail was the top with 47% of the votes. And when we asked, generally, regardless of what concept you selected, what were your, why were you selecting these concepts? What sort of stood out to you? The top choices were that it had the nature experience that they were looking for, or it provided play for all ages, as well as having green spaces or open spaces. So these were the top preferences of why people chose the concept that they selected. And then we also asked participants to think about some of the cost trade-offs when they were selecting their concepts. So the most important thing to include in the final design when we had to make some decisions around cost trade-offs were the restrooms. So with 41%, people voted that as one of the most important elements to include in the final design. And we broke off the data to show you just the Rancho Rinconada residents and what their preferences were, because that's what we heard in the initial round of engagement. We really wanted to engage the local immediate neighbors and recognize what their preferences were. So when asked around the trade-off, the most important elements for the immediate neighbors in this neighborhood were to have the sound wall up as much as possible, as well as include as many recreation features as possible. So these were the top two features that stood up to them. And in their preferred concept, they also agreed with Story Trail, concept B. So you can see that on here. And then we had an open-ended question. What else did community members like to share with us? And so this really aligned with a lot of the concerns that we had heard in the initial phase of engagement back in the spring. Concerns around parking, safety, making sure, like Jan said, that there was safety and division between bikes or bikers and other users, but making sure that there's also passive space or quiet space and that the sound wall would impact visibility and safety. So these concerns came back up. We just wanted to recognize those. And then they shared a few ideas and solutions as well, minimizing parking issues by making this a bike-oriented destination, including tables or benches near the play areas, and then prioritizing nature space. And so here you're seeing, we just wrapped up the online survey summary, but here you're seeing the combined votes across the in-person events, the virtual meeting, and the online survey, so that you can see that, again, concept B really stood out regardless if it was the survey, online, or in person as the preferred concept for residents. And then here again, comparing across engagement in person and online, what were the preferred features? And so you're seeing the list as we showed earlier in a previous slide, but now adding the in-person votes as well. And so the Creekside deck and overlooks, the nature areas, nature play are really at top as you're seeing here. So all of this engagement and input really is giving us this direction for that final concept. So we wanted to make sure to include the connection to nature, open views to the creek as top priorities, why people were inclined to vote for concept B or Story Trail, and then including some additional priorities because this one is more focused on nature. It gives us the opportunity to bring in some of the elements that stood out from concept A and C, including areas for play, for all ages and all abilities and all users, making sure that there is that opportunity for a future connection on the trail. So a fully interconnected recreation system, including resting and social spaces, a flexible space for people to enjoy, and then including the restroom with being mindful of the concerns about where the restroom is actually located. So we did hear concerns about having the restroom at Sterling Barnhart, and so that was something that we want to keep in mind as we develop the final concept. So with all that information, what's next? We are getting ready to, again, design the final park trail plan and design, where we've heard from the community across the different concepts. Last night and tonight, we're hearing from all of you as commissioners, and then we're going to City Council in the coming months to share this with them as well, and really bring all of this together into one final design of the site that is site appropriate with some of the limitations and constraints that we found earlier on in the process, making sure that it's cost effective, as well as designed for opportunities for all ages and engaging all ages, and meeting the community's needs that we've heard throughout the process. And with that, we'll pass it back to the commissioners for discussion.
I have a question. I thank you so much. This was a very good presentation. One question I have is, people were looking for open views of the creek. What are we doing with regard to a lot of homeless encampments, especially if we were to open it up for, greater viewing of the creek area?
Thank you, Commissioner. I can answer that if that's all right with the chair.
Okay.
Sure.
So we are, as a Public Works, we're trying to address the encampments now and trying to stay on that. The idea is that when and if this is a more used property and inhabited, we won't have the same problems. We're working with sheriff, and just we're bearing it in mind as we proceed with the design, but know that the implementation of the project probably won't happen until a year from now. So, we'll hope that conditions improve.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Commissioner Stan, do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, thank you for recognizing me. One question I had was, which other commissions are you speaking with? I'm guessing Bike Ped. Are there any others?
Thank you, Commissioner. Last night we went to the Bike and Ped Commission and we made the same presentation. So yeah, the next step is to go to council. Yeah.
And what was the feedback from the Bike Ped Commission?
They didn't have anything that was earth-shattering. They're definitely wanting to see a connection to the north end of the parcel. For this project, we're designing this parcel and we're keeping the options open for the future. But since we don't own the property up there, that isn't a part of this project per se. So they've asked that we include it in next year's CIP to have that as a project to include the Calvert Drive, make a connection there. That was their main concern.
Okay, super. Yeah, thank you. That makes a lot of sense. And so right now you're going to be taking something to council that basically are these three, showing them the three options where the interest is from the residents. So is this the time when we'll be deciding what are the actual nature play elements? Is that at a later stage?
Yes. So we'll be taking, so the concept we're bringing to you and to the council is we've done community outreach. We've produced these designs. We've done the outreach. The community has spoken and says they like option B with some of the features maybe from C. And so that's the basis on which we're proceeding. And so we're doing a final check before we proceed down that road. When we proceed into that design, our next step is to develop you could say the final design, but it's still conceptual, schematic. And then we'll come back to the commissions and the council again with that to get your input.
Super. Thank you so much, Susan.
Mhm.
All right. Minutes. But in the meantime, the one question that I had before I open it up, there's one hand up. So just for clarity of this discussion just about this, do we have a timeline that we specified other than the overall timeline that was in the report for all of these phases? I know there was 23, it's a 22, 23, but was there any kind of a timeline provided somewhere that I missed? Because I tried
We have a general timeline. Jan, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. The next phase will be, we think we're going to council now in January, and then we'll be doing that final plan. And then we take that final plan into that environmental review process. That does take a little time, so that would be about June or July next year. And then after that's approved, we can start the construction drawing process. And then we think the actual construction would be starting in 2024. So a little bit of hoops to go through before that.
Okay. I'm going to go to the participants here, and I believe we have Jennifer who's raised her hand. So shall I allow you to talk?
Thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. That was a wonderful presentation. I'll tell you, MIG has just been so professional in this entire endeavor. I'm very, very impressed with all the care they took, how much input they got from all different parts of the public. I was present for 2 of the on-sites at the actual park. We walked around. I don't walk well, and I actually got myself out there, which was amazing. I was really sore when I came back because I have gout, so it's difficult for me to walk distances, but it is really fantastic. I'm so amazed at the amount of oak trees and nature inside.
Disturb you, Jennifer.
Area. Pardon?
Sorry to disturb you, but Jessica, is the timer running? Yeah, okay, it's my.
We had 3. Oh, that's okay. You got 3 minutes. I've got you up on TV too, so I see 2:09. You guys are all over my screen. So the Brady Bunch. Anyway, no, I'm really, really tickled about this whole thing. Just wonderful. And I'm a real proponent of B or C. And my concerns were since I don't walk great distances, I'm hoping someday to be able to walk from my house to this park without my husband bringing me. But I'm really looking to have benches, quiet, maybe picnic tables, places for kids to enjoy the nature area. I would like to have an emergency phone out there just from the history of the area. There's lots of things that have happened out there. And I'm particularly concerned about security. It sounds like the sheriff's department would have people out there because it is remote and you're out against Lawrence Expressway. But let's see, the other thing was, yes, no, I'm just really, really pleased with the whole thing. And one thing we do have to.
Jennifer, it looks like you got muted.
Hey, you can't.
There you go.
I opened up. I'm just as concerned about having an emergency phone. And remember that creek does carry a high load of water when it's raining. So we may need to put fences up along there if you do have benches for protection for people. But I like B and C are probably my favorite ones. And I think just having quiet areas where you can sit and enjoy, because once you get in there, it is, you do have the noise from Lawrence, but then again, we've had the noise from 280 since I was a kid. Actually remember the area before 280 was put in, it was very quiet. But, once you're back in there, you are secluded. You're among oak trees, you're in an area where you really feel the nature experience. So I am so pleased with MIG. Thank you so much. And I think I'm done.
Sasha, you're
Thank you,
muted.
Jennifer. Thank you, Jennifer. The next person that has raised their hand is Lisa Warren. Lisa, you can talk.
Okay, I have this tiny screen I'm trying to split so I don't label things wrong. Thank you. Yeah, MIG, I said last night at Bike and Ped meeting that they've done a great job. Susan also, and John, I'm sure you too, but Susan seems to be the face all the time. So I know she doesn't work in a vacuum. So thank you, everyone. And I would want to repeat something I asked a long time ago. Please consider changing the name of this park before it gets etched somewhere, because I don't believe this is appropriate name. But I don't, okay. So I'm really glad that the community who participated in this, the feedback has sort of ixnayed the whole bike, the pump and the track. It's not appropriate for the area, in my opinion, for several reasons. And every meeting I went to with the public, that was not a priority at all. What was mentioned a lot is having some open space to throw a Frisbee if there were ever a DOLA there, to actually have some area for dogs. So I see more of that, where it was mentioned that option C, I think it's called Play It Up, has got more oomph on the south end, excuse me, the north end than the south side, which initially I don't think anyone really expected the south side of the bridge to be changed as part of this park. So I would prefer that the resources that we're using are focused on the north side, and of course improvements to the south side, but I just don't see that being used as much. And if we can get more packed in effectively on what's the bigger piece of property and the wider stretch, it makes more sense to me. So my preference is a combination of B and C, and I think I prefer more of C than B. Of course, I answered the survey questions, so my input's in there with everybody else. I'm not trying to say I'm the only one that matters by any stretch. But it's something to think about, I think. And also last night at the meeting, a couple of the commissioners, bike ped commissioners, were asking about, and then Carol here again tonight, the extension outside towards Stevens Creek. I think it's super important for people to understand that Calvert Drive is a freeway entrance. It's not a great place. It's where the unhoused and panhandlers are always. They've been there for years. And now people that choose to go into the park area to quote unquote live are coming in a more difficult way. Just in the future, when that section, because I know it's not now, there's not a great place to make a connection. The better side, the other side of Lawrence is a better place. There's already a trail there. And then there's a crosswalk and a light across Lawrence Expressway. So I just feel there's a lot of confusion about
so it's like the chair is back.
Oh, hello?
Welcome, Mina. We can hear you.
Okay. So now, is there any community members want to make oral communication?
That's what we just had.
Okay, so if there's no more, oh, I see. Yeah, the vice chair has something. to say?
My internet is really acting up, so I ask that you please take care of it, and then I don't mind if Commissioner would be standby. I'm going to try and back to my hotspot and see if that's better. So.
Okay. And so the next should be, I just want to know what's the next? Is that
Commissioner
for the
comments. We're on commissioner comments for this item.
Okay. So Commissioner, if you have anything to say, please raise your hand. It's time for giving comments. Oh, Commissioner Carol Stanek.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to thank the consultants and staff for all of their hard work and the outreach. I think it's pretty clear that the residents were focused on keeping this a natural play area, and I think that's great. And I look forward to moving forward in the process, and at the time when we will have more discussion about the actual nature elements or other things that are there. I appreciate the comments from Lisa Warren about the trail. I think it's something that we really need to look at very carefully, because the trail is coming up from the south. I think it's the Saratoga Bike Trail that connects at the southern end. And I know that Bike Ped has been looking at this to extend that trail all the way. So whether it goes on the opposite side of the street, as Lisa Warren was suggesting, or we take it to this side, I know that's going to be a big area of focus moving forward. And I think as we look at the three options, I think one of the things that was a given was that there would be a bike trail through here. So I don't want that to get overlooked as we're looking at, oh, these are the things that might be different. I think that was one of the baselines. So and correct me if I'm wrong on that, but the things that were baselines that we're going to be doing, I think could be brought out more in the presentation. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. The bike and ped trail are both part and parcel of the design in any of the designs that we do. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it would be good if that was stated clearly, so people don't forget about that or minimize the importance of that. And so I'd really like to see that that on there. I think I understand completely why the Rancho residents feel like a restroom is not as important for them, because they're so close, and they're the ones that are probably going to be walking to the park. I mean, and other people are going to be walking because you can't get there by driving, but there may be bicycling. And to the extent that we want families to come, or older people, or just about anybody, a bathroom's a pretty important amenity. So I understand that seemed to be lower on the list for the Rancho Rinconada respondents, but I do think that is a very important aspect of making this a really usable park for families with young kids and people of all ages. I think that's all my comments.
Okay, so Vice Chair Sashi Begar.
Hopefully with the hotspot, my internet will be slightly better. I had a couple of questions also, and a couple of comments following that. I guess the question I have was, how, given the drought and given whatever we're dealing with, when was the creek flowing last, or is it flowing now, given that we've had some sort of rain? How often in the winter does it actually flow? Anybody can comment on that?
Actually, I have something to say. I'm living close by, and I think 10 years ago, it flows all year. So even in summer, there was water, but after the California drought, yeah, it just stopped from spring, summer, and fall, and only have water in winter. But maybe staff have other data if you would like to share.
Thank you. No, I don't. I don't know if John does. He's worked here longer than I did. Actually, I'll mention just because it's interesting. On John's first day as an employee in the city of Cupertino, he went out to the Lawrence Mitty site and was working on it. So, was there a creek flowing then?
As you mentioned, I've been out there since 2015 on and off, and I don't think I've ever seen water in there. Probably wouldn't go out on a rainy day anyways, but my assumption is based on like Regnar Creek and that, if it does get a significant rain, it'll probably have some flow in it, but I couldn't tell you when that was last.
Okay, because there was a lot of emphasis on creek view and, having the benches there. And the last I went there was, of course, during the summer, and they didn't seem like there had been a drop of water in a long time. So do we want to, figure out, maybe have more trees, I don't know, something else? Because if there is not going to be any water, there's going to be nothing to see. And if it is raining, I seriously doubt anybody would come out to the park at that point. The other question comment that I have is there was a lot of talk about the sonic wall, and a lot of concern about safety, which is a very, very valid thing. But I think given the closeness to Lawrence Expressway, is there an air quality issue as well? And does it require more trees to be planted rather than removed in order to improve the air quality in that area?
Actually, Jan, do you have any info on hand? Because we did cover all that in the environmental report.
Yeah, and that is part of the CEQA process, but I know what Mike has said already about that, our environmental consultant in-house, is that there's not a requirement that it's hitting a threshold. I mean, it's not going to be as good as other areas in town, but there's nothing serious that we're hitting a threshold for.
Okay, because I did not see that in the environmental report, in the summary report. I didn't see anything about air quality there.
Yeah, that's true. There wasn't a section in that, but in the CEQA process, it's a little bit more in depth. That's the California required work that we do, and that will be out in about 6 months' time.
Okay.
Once we have the final plan, that's when they start doing that very official report and wrap up all those.
Okay. Yeah, I wonder from both the noise perspective and the air quality perspective, since we do have the trail right now on the south end of it, is there any kind of information about this at this point?
Sorry, I didn't understand the question again. There was some audio disruption.
Okay, the south end of the trail is actually open right now, right? It's a biking, it's part of the Saratoga Creek Trail, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
And people walk there. And so do we have any information at all about the air quality and or the noise as is measured right now?
We measured the noise quite a bit in the initial environmental study. So what we, the project team, actually MIG's team, did when we started was to go out and measure and kind of quantify and document as much as we could about the existing conditions of the site. And in this case, the site is environmental. So we did our upfront information. So that was the initial environmental report. And the sound studies are in there. And the sound wall that has been developed is that there's each of the options had different sound wall configurations. But the designers and the engineers have looked at it and know where the best locations are for our money to have the most effect on the sound. But as Jan was saying, the CEQA process that follows once we have a design, there will be more detailed environmental evaluation to review that. But one of the prerequisites for hiring a designer was that we needed to have a sound analysis going on because that is such a big part of the site.
One last comment. It's the fact that their biking will be a very critical part of it, or at least some feedback that's an essential part. I think we've had a couple of, we had the joint meeting. There was very big concern about opening it out on the north end. So that's something that we really have to be very, 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 very careful about, of how that trail comes out on the other side. That's a huge concern. And I think, we need to get some serious study or feedback on, how we're going to work through that issue, because it's, bikes within Cupertino near schools are crazy enough to start with. And, right by a freeway entrance, it's just asking for trouble. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Commissioner Swamy.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair Chu, for recognizing me. I want to answer Commissioner Sashi Begur's question about when was it that we last saw water. I've been in the area since 2014, and like you, John, I haven't seen a smidgen of water. I do see some water when there's rainy season, but really not a whole lot enough to see a continuous trickle or a flow. Which brings up the second point that Commissioner Begur said, which is, should we have alternative or some additional type of vegetation over there? The one thing that really comes to mind about the sound, and I want to ask you for your feedback and your responses. Yes, the sound wall sounds that it is a requirement, but if we were to plant a lot of these long fir trees, not the broad ones, but the thin, long ones, would that not also act like a sound barrier while also not being an eyesore? Just want to ask you your opinion about that from your expertise and your from that standpoint. Please, would love to hear your answer.
I'll turn that over to Jan if you have any kind of information. Thank you.
I do. I also believed that foliage would have an impact if it was dense enough, but the noise consultants say that is a common misconception, and it really doesn't have a big impact on suppressing the noise. So if you didn't want to do a wall, one other option is a berm. So like a pile of soil that's bermed up can work. But if you want to be most effective, the wall is kind of the most effective for having the least amount of space used up. And then it also blocks the most noise because it's kind of like a wave that travels over. So you block the noise, but then it eventually comes back down at a lower level.
Right.
So the berm, you lose a little bit of that space that you're blocking.
Right. And sorry, to follow up, that pile of mud can also have some ground cover and it can also look pretty, right?
Yes. And we did think if we were doing the bike skiing, we did have the berm instead of a sound wall, we utilized a berm in that one.
Yeah.
We might not want to sacrifice the space in the other schemes because there were reasons to do it in the bike one. We needed that topography anyway. But if we want to really kind of maximize our community space, we probably want to lean towards the sound wall just to get the most space for the amenities and the bike trail and the walking paths and everything.
So is that a recommendation, or you're saying that we should not consider the alternative because of space constraint, or are you saying that we do have an option to think about the, looking at it from it also provides natural habitat, right? We can have the nice ground cover. We could have all kinds of drought resistant plants in there. And that also provides, the kind of relief to a sore eye, one could argue, as opposed to having, and a bike trail really doesn't need a whole lot of space, does it? And it's not wide enough for a whole lot of playground kind of area. So why not combine the bike space area with the alternative where we are not actually putting an eyesore, and this also looks more natural and it's prettier.
Well, I think both are still definitely valid options that we can explore with the budget that we have and see how it pans out. I think either way, if we do go the sound wall route, we're going to put more trees and planting in front of it, so it won't be won't be the eyesore that you're talking about when you have a really narrow condition and the wall's right up against you.
Yeah. So what are the cost implications? Which one is more expensive? Sorry.
Oh, definitely the sound wall.
Yeah. So, it seems to me that a more naturalistic approach might not be a bad idea to have a strong consideration on.
And I think we will still consider that.
Thank you.
And I also have some question about the trees. So currently there's more trees by Lawrence at south end of the trail. But for the north end, that's a major place of the Lawrence Meeting Park. I remember there's not so much trees along Lawrence. So it's right the place on the map. It shows it maybe have a potential sound wall. Yeah, so I just want to make sure. There is also an option to plant more trees instead of build a wall. Is that true? Did I misunderstood anything?
One of the takeaways from the community input was the emphasis on nature. So we are definitely going to plant more trees. And what I think Jan was trying to say, we know that the berm is a less expensive and yet effective option, but it takes up space. On the area of the parcel where there's a big open space, that's not as difficult to consider, but there are areas of the site that are really tight in terms of width, so we're trying to just balance the two. So as Jan also mentioned, where we have a sound wall, we can and plan to plant trees wherever we can in front of the sound wall to have that nature connection.
Okay, and so my point is, I think on the south end, there are already more trees along Lawrence. I just want to make sure you're not going to cut so many trees to build a sound wall. And for the north side, there's not so many trees, but we have more space on the north side. So maybe planting trees is also, yeah, that's also bearable. And I have another question. So are we going to install the new irrigation system for along the trail? Because in the past, those trees by the creek, actually they were not watered. So after the California drought, after the creek got dry for several years, I saw a lot of trees dying. So I'm just wondering, for this project, is there any plan to update, maybe add more irrigation system to the plants along the creek?
And Jan, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's definitely going to be an irrigation system, even for the trees. So when you do a major system like a park, you definitely have to have a higher level of irrigation to get it started. And then as it gets more mature in its location, you don't have to water as much, but we'll need to have irrigation. And we're also engaging with the public works staff to make sure that we're covered operationally. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because 10 years ago, we do need irrigation system along the trail because the creek has water all year long.
Yeah.
But in recent year, the condition changed. And I see Commissioner Kara Stanek have something to say.
Thank you. Yeah, I had a couple other comments. The first one was, I guess, a question harking back to Lisa Warren's comment about renaming. When would the appropriate time would it be in the process that might be considered?
It's definitely on our list of things to do. We're actually trying to launch a survey to first rename the I-280 trail. And we also have it in the project plan for this to put out a similar endeavor survey or somehow get a new name. Yes. We've
okay, great.
Lisa's mentioned that a number of times and we're on it.
Okay, I don't know if she's ever gotten a response on that. So.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
So I'm sure if it comes up again, at least if it's on the plan somewhere, then she can say, I'm so glad to see that that's happening, and we can all say that. And then the other thing was, as we go forward, I think, there may be some sound wall, some berm, to the extent that there is some sound wall. Again, we're going to want to make it aesthetic, and you're talking about trees. It may be an opportunity for art in unexpected places, and so I would really like to see the Art and Culture Commission maybe weigh in on that at the appropriate time. I think that would be a great opportunity. Of course, with any sound wall, you want to be concerned about graffiti, and so maybe if we have something that would be something that people would appreciate, that we can cut that back. That's all.
Okay, next is Commissioner Swamy.
Thank you. I really want to reiterate why we should really consider the berm wall seriously, because as Commissioner Stanek also pointed out, in addition, if it's more sustainable. Two, as Commissioner Stanek pointed out, there's also an option where, all these empty walls are really an invitation for more people to come and do graffiti. And two, if we were to do murals or any other kind of actual art up there, it adds to the cost. The point of that is, how can we make it more sustainable, pleasing to the eye, and use natural, elements to make the trail exactly what it is, a lovely one, and have the bike trail go through. So for the short spaces that I heard you say, Susan, that, well, the space is somewhat narrow, we could certainly consider putting up a wall there or something else. But I don't want us to dismiss off the berm wall as an alternative, especially because A, it's sustainable, B, beautiful, 3, more natural, 4, prevents being an eyesore. And eyesore is not just putting trees in front of it, but also it's a potential for graffiti and other things. Okay. And 5, it's cheaper.
And I have some questions. So from the presentation, I didn't see, other than the new restroom in the Sterling Barnhart Park, is there other restrooms in the Lawrence Mitty Park? I didn't see it on the map. Just want to make sure, because the Barnhart Park is very tiny and the Lawrence Mitty Park is big. I assume there should be a bigger restroom in the Lawrence Mitty Park.
So in 2 of the options, we included a restroom to get feedback, and in both of the options, we included the restrooms at Sterling Barnhart. The feedback that I think the takeaway is that the restroom is heavily favored by most users, with the greatest exception being the neighbors that are adjacent to the park, the Sterling Barnhart Park. They're very opposed to having the bathroom in that location. And one of the things that the project team, including John and myself, are going to look into is the cost and the reality of trying to put the bathroom in on the Lawrence Mitty parcel. The difficulty of doing that is that we can't pull the utilities, water and sewer from the city of Cupertino. We have to pull it from the city of San Jose because we can't cross the creek bed. But we are going to look into the reality of making what it would take to make that happen. And I know that Jan and Myrna's concern is the budget for the project. So we have to balance all these things. But we did have clear feedback from the community that the bathroom was a priority for the park.
So that means on the Lawrence Meaty Park, there won't be the drinking water, the water fountain for drinking either, because of the water pipe is hard to install.
That's a good point. I would assume there will be drinking fountains somewhere, but we haven't crossed that bridge yet. So it's definitely part of the equation.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I think the drinking water fountain is important. If kids play in that area in summer, they may need that. But without a restroom, that will be not so convenient.
Agreed.
And I have another question about the creek outlook. I just want to make sure. So, do you know the height of the outlook, or? And I'm concerned about the safety issue, because in winter, after rain, the creek there may be full of water, and sometimes the water is mixed with sand and rocks, so the water just turn yellow or even black. At that time, I just want to make sure the outlook that there won't be any safety issue there.
This is where I rely on MIG. They're professionals, and I don't believe we'd be creating a dangerous condition there. So there would have to be some kind of guardrail, something to prevent a child from falling down the creek. We'll get into the details in the next stage, but yeah.
Yeah, I just have concern about the base of the outlook. Just make sure when the creek has a lot of water, it won't damage the base, and make sure the outlook won't collapse.
We're not allowed to put it in that area, so we won't.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for the bike trail, I just want to make some comments. I think the bike trail along Lawrence Meaty Park, it's kind of different from the Ragnar Creek Trail condition, because there's no houses by the trail, and all the residential houses are on the other side of the creek. So looks like, I don't think residents will have some major concern about the bike trail, because it's on the other side of the creek. But for the north side of it says future trail connection north. So that one, does that mean we need further study of that even after the Lawrence Meaty Park built? Is there further study?
The translation is at the top of the park. The parcel doesn't abut City of Cupertino property, so we have nowhere to go. So the point is that we're taking this parcel and designing this parcel as a park and a trail that's on it, but knowing that any connection to the north needs to be another project, a different project. So what we've tried to do for this project is we actually have a turnaround at the end of the trail, so that the trail doesn't just hit a wall. There's a natural turnaround there, but that we're allowing for future connections.
Okay, got it. Thank you. And I see Vice Chair Sashi has something to say.
Yeah, I have a couple of comments with regard to the bathroom that I forgot to make earlier. I know the general feedback seems to be that we need to put that bathroom in the Barnhart Park. That's such a tiny park. Where can we possibly put it? I mean, there's a big structure there, as far as I remember. I'm doing this off the top of my head. I don't see that there's a feasible place for it. You'll have to either remove the structure or remove something in order for you to put a bathroom there. So that might actually cost more to put a bathroom there than to get the lines over from the other side. It's just something that I don't know if you've already taken into calculation.
So we identified a few possible locations. It's conceptual at this point. We haven't, taken into the physical reality and testing out what would actually work. But as I mentioned, that we got a significant amount of pushback. So our first design push will be to see what we can put into the Lawrence Mini parcel itself instead of the Sterling Barnhart part. But no promises either way. We need to work that out in the next phase of the design.
Sure. Okay, then the other question I have, and this is more of a general question, and because I don't understand this process, when you have a sound wall, and especially that it's going to be for a public park, is there some kind of a recommendation of how you maintain the security? Will there be floodlights or some kind? I mean, obviously floodlights are going to have its own environmental effect, but will there be some cameras or something that turns on when people, what are options that people can have so that somebody walking there feels safe beside the sound wall, I guess?
So we definitely, we considered lighting because of, it was one of the earlier comments. We've decided against putting lighting on the trail because of the habitat concerns. The security concerns, we're working with the public safety division, the sheriff's office, the fire department to make sure that we're covering our bases and make sure we're providing a safe place. We'll get into cameras and things like that in the next phase as well. But it's definitely all part of the design process.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's all I have.
I think it's the end of commission discussion. And we can go to the next item of the agenda.
Thank you, commissioners, for your input.
And thank you for all the explanation. And so the next subject is update on fiscal year 2022 to 2023 city work program item, intergenerational engagement.
All right, thank you. I'd like to introduce our new recreation supervisor at the Senior Center, Alex Greer.
Thank you, commissioners, for having me. My name is Alex. I'm the new Senior Center Supervisor, and I'm here to present an update and receive your feedback on the 2022-2023 City Work Program item, intergenerational engagement. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen right now. Okay, does everyone see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
For today's presentation, I'll be giving a brief background on the item, our current status, the fiscal impact, and then, of course, your input and feedback. So many seniors have a wealth of lifelong experiences. Many teens do not have grandparents nearby. Activities cross generations could benefit both. We feel that intergenerational programming could benefit both generations. Could help combat some issues that seniors face, such as loneliness or depression, as well as getting them active. And it also can give youth a better understanding of aging and disabilities and somewhat of a comfort level for that process of their life, as well as have somewhat of a mentorship for youth. Our goal as a staff for this item is basically to create opportunities for both generations to interact together, in turn promoting a higher sense of community between those two generations as well as the overall community. Currently, staff are working on bringing back past intergenerational programming in addition to incorporating new ideas. A former program staff intends to bring back is titled Techie Teens. This program provides seniors the opportunity to receive tech support at the Senior Center from volunteer high school students. Another return program is Classics and Cookies. Seniors enjoy cookies while listening to classical music performed by youth musical groups. Possible new programs may include a silent disco event, arts and crafts socials, board game socials, and various outdoor activities. The approved budget attached to the fiscal year 2022-2023 city work program item is $20,000. And that concludes my presentation on intergenerational engagement, and I would appreciate any feedback you all, the commissioners, may have at this time.
Okay, thank you. Is there any commissioner have questions? I see Commissioner Swamy.
Thank you, Chair Shu. I must say I absolutely am in love with this intergenerational program. I think this is something that should be beneficial, not only psychologically, and also create a greater degree of connectivity. I'd love to hear a little bit more about this and more details about how we can strengthen these intergenerational relationships. But I love the concept, absolutely. I think that is, there's actually a lot of research about how the senior citizens feel a great sense of loneliness. And with two parents actually, working, it is also a good opportunity for people, for two different generations to connect and learn about each other and find great support. So I just want to make that comment that I love it, would love to hear more about it. And if you want to do expansions, what are you planning to do in the future? What's your long-term vision and moderate-term vision as well?
If I may, through the chair, I just wanted to mention, we also presented this to the Teen Commission and they were very excited and came up with fabulous ideas. So we will be working with them and our youth activity board to come up with more great things that we can do in the future. We're rolling it out a teensy bit slowly because we're still watching our seniors come back from COVID, but we're definitely bringing the ideas and growing them as we can for the future.
I must say this is one of the, I'm wholeheartedly in support of this and love the idea. Thank you.
Vice Chair Begor.
Yeah, thank you, Alex, for that presentation. Yes, I would second what Seema has said. It's an excellent idea. That is something that will really help all the generations involved in this project. My question really, just from the presentation perspective, is that there was a budget of $20,000 that was assigned by the city. Given, I'm assuming, and I should not, but I'm assuming that the teens that participate in this are going to be getting some voluntary hours or something like that. So what do you expect is it the cost of running the programs, and what are some of the things that you expect you will be spending?
I can take this one, Alex, if you want. It's mostly materials, supplies. Obviously, with the cookies event, there's going to be cookies that we have to buy. Some events will have snacks and other items. But, we definitely don't want to just make it that they walk in and there's, let's say the musical one, kids playing music. We want it to be an event to enjoy. So that will include us having to purchase different materials and supplies or decorations or different things to really create an environment for the seniors. We also may bring in different instructors for things that could be fun. It may not just be teen volunteering. It could be different instructors that may charge. It could be speaking engagements. We could even do a mental health and bring both teens and seniors in, and that's something they could even engage over because both generations, that is an issue. And then, of course, if we do the silent disco, we may actually be purchasing the silent disco headsets because why would we not want to keep doing that? That's totally fun. So there's quite a few different things the money could go toward, but it's going to end up being items that can help us to continue this in the future.
Thank you.
Oh, I see. Commissioner Swamy have question again.
It's a little bit less of a question than a recommendation. We are really, especially when you talk about the senior citizens, I know that culturally cookies, fudges, brownies, these are normal go-to snacks. Can we consider bringing in something like more along the lines of fruits, some kind of a healthy snack, especially for senior citizens? Many of them are either diabetic or can have cholesterol. And fruit is not only a great snack, but it's also, I'm a strong proponent of like, why don't we just propagate not just mental well-being, but also physical well-being? It costs, I think, about the same, or maybe a little bit cheaper, but that's a good option to consider. So maybe we can start de-emphasizing on the feel good, but
so
feel better
the
snacks.
one event that Alex mentioned, it is cookies. It's part of the name of the event. But yes, we definitely heard that from the Teen Commission also, and many of our seniors who also bring in stuff from their trees in their yards and share it at the senior center. So there's plenty of times where we will try and go definitely a healthier way. But of course we will check in with the seniors because some of them do love it when it's just good old fashioned cookies or cupcakes or something.
But it's not good for them, and
right. But I'm not going to deprive them either.
No. But you can get them good snacks like say frozen yogurts.
Yes,
there are a lot of healthy options. Seriously,
there are.
And
but we will definitely take their input, of course. On
right. But if you ask a diabetic, they'll say, "I'd love to have a cookie because they're deprived." But that's not really good, right? Why don't we spend a little bit more and give them a healthier option? Please, please do consider that. I say this with a genuine sense of concern because I know how difficult it is for people. And when they get together and I'll tell you, most of us, at least I don't like cookies, but if it's in front of me, I will eat one. And it's not particularly good. And I have to now work it out. Now, senior citizens, particularly, let's be mindful of their health.
Yeah. We have a lot of luncheons and such at the senior center. And so we do a lot of trying to stay healthy with them and also give them other options that are sweets, but healthy sweets. So we will definitely continue to stay on that track.
Thank you, Rachel.
Okay. So no other clarification questions. And thank you for the nice presentation. I think it's a great idea. But just hope from next year, this program will be, give great opportunity for kids and old people so they can have good time together. After the flu season. Okay.
Thank you all for having me.
Before we move on, are we going to take public comment on this?
And
then wrap it up. I mean, I didn't raise my hand because I was waiting to get through the question part to the part where we generally have discussion.
I think the next is the public comments for this item. So if any community members, you have anything to say about this agenda item, please raise your hand. And I see Jennifer raised hand.
Thank you, Minna, Chair, Miss Chair Minna. Hi, I'm Jennifer Griffin. This is a really interesting item. I'm really glad you guys were pursuing this. I was lucky enough to have my grandparents, both sets of them, and then another set by another marriage. And they were, with 4 children in my family, my grandparents provided hands-on babysitting for my mother, who was trying to handle 3 boys and a girl. And it is just wonderful that children have access to the wisdom of older people. During COVID, I remember so many times getting through times that, the last 2 years were very. Okay, so what's going on with the mute thing?
It's not us, so I'm sorry, Jennifer. We can hear you again.
Okay. Hey, IT, hang on. I'll be done in a second. No, I really, I think it's a lot of children right now we actually have one in our family, are struggling with issues as they go back to school in terms of anxiety, nervousness. And I think that having older people in their families or schools, etc., to try to help them realize that they got through it, that there are things that people go through and you do survive. I just wanted to say 2 of the games that I enjoyed with my grandparents were bingo, especially when my grandmother lived at a retirement community. Loved bingo. Now, I don't know if you guys can do bingo in Cupertino. You may have to get a permit. I don't know. And shuffleboard. Now, oh my God, my grandparents loved shuffleboard. And when we went with them anywhere, there were lots of shuffleboard championships. I don't know if they do that now, but it's great for seniors because you just push like a disc back and forth, and a lot of retirement areas have access to it. So I don't even know if we have a shuffleboard court in Cupertino anywhere. It's low stress for the seniors, and the kids get to run around and say, oh, grandpa got a 50 or 60 or something. So anyway, well, good. I think you guys are doing a wonderful job with this. And it's really good for kids to have access to hear another generation's perspective, especially when you realize that these seniors have gone through several wars, different things like that. I just, I'm really, really supportive of what you guys are doing with this. Thank you.
And thank you, Jennifer, for your comments. So there any community member have something to say, please raise your hand. If nobody raise hand, let's go. Oh, I see Luis Sadati raised hand. Yeah, please make your comment.
So I just had a quick comment. I think that since this community, at least half the people are Chinese, that mahjong is wonderful. You cannot go through Parks and Rec commission meeting without mentioning mahjong as an intergenerational a game. My mother just went, who's 93 years old, had a stroke, and we had to teach her language again. And the thing that really encouraged her to learn language and learn how to count Chinese numbers, right? Because it's just like Gen Rummy, where you have the Chinese numbers. She learned how to do language just so she could go back to playing mahjong. And it really was stimulating. And it's really therapeutic when you move the tiles around and build the walls. So anyway, I'm sure there's other games from India that are real popular. And I think that it would be a great way to have it be cross-cultural as well as intergenerational. So, so there you have it.
Hello?
Yep, I'm done.
Oh, okay. Thank you for your comments. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure if in senior center is already some senior play mahjong, but I see in the Sunnyvale, so that senior housing by Foothill, I saw those senior people. They play mahjong daily. They have some, that's their program every day.
We do have it, but it'd be very fun if they could teach the younger generation. I think that'd be great.
Okay, now we can start. Commissioner, you can start your comments and discussion. Commissioner Carol Stanek.
Thank you. Yes, I'd just like to reiterate, it looks like a great program. I think it will be very well received. There are so many different opportunities, and I think we could probably go on all night, but I think there will be lots of opportunities in the future to try different things and see what works, whether it's mahjong, whether it's bringing in the chess club, finding out what seniors hang out there and what their interests are, and if they need a partner to play chess or cards, lots of different cards games, something like that. A resource might also be to the Girl and Boy Scout community. I know that the Girl Scouts are often looking for ways they might do crafts with the seniors. Perhaps, early in the Christmas cycle, they could figure out how to do a Christmas ornament, or maybe, take a photo and create an ornament with the seniors' photo on it that they could give to their families. So there's lots of things, and there's just lots of opportunity. Just leaves it to the imagination is the only thing that limits it. So thank you. I look forward to seeing more of this program.
Yeah, and thank you for the comments. And I also have some question about this program. So how about the outreach plan for kids? Can we maybe notify the school district and maybe work with the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts? Is there any plan about outreach to recruit more kids to help?
Yes, that's correct. We plan to outreach definitely with the school district, as well as our commissions, our youth commissions, and our YAB, our Youth Advisory Board, and then other non-school volunteer groups. We plan to contact them, and with the support of the Teen Commission. A lot of those teen commissioners have connections to outside volunteer groups that are looking for volunteer opportunities. So once we have more concrete ideas and programs, we plan to utilize those connections to bring in the youth volunteers, since we already have the seniors here at the senior center, and then just using those connections that we already have to bring in the youth volunteers and the youth participants.
Yeah, thank you. Very thoughtful. Is there any comments from Commissioner? If no more further comments, we can go to the next agenda item. So that's the monthly update report. So we start
you, Alex,
with
for your
Commission.
presentation.
Thank you all. Thank you all for your feedback.
So we can start with commissioners. I'll go at the end if any of you have updates.
Yeah. Commissioner Stanek.
Thank you. I participated in the commissioners' dinner where I saw a couple of you there, which was a very nice thank you from the council, recognizing the new incoming commissioners and the outgoing commissioners as well for their time. So it's a very nice opportunity to be in a different environment and talk about things that are not necessarily related to the commission, and just to get to know each other a little better. I think it was very nice. I also attended the Veterans Day celebration over at Memorial Park, and I wanted to comment on a couple things. One, I was just driving by and I noticed that the grassy areas at Memorial Park, the ponds are replaced with grass and landscaping, and I just want to commend the staff for getting that done in time for the Veterans Day celebration. It looks beautiful. If you haven't been over there, I highly recommend it. And the fences are still up, but I think that's just to give the grass some time to settle in. And I'm so appreciative that that got done. I'd also like to thank the organizers of the Veterans Day event. It was a beautiful event, and I see that Sandy James is actually one of our attendees tonight, and I know she has a lot to do with putting on that program. And it was really a beautiful thank you to our veterans, and there were so many veterans there from going as far back as World War II. And some of the employees that were veterans from Apple have donated a new boulder that is in Memorial Park. And they have done this anonymously. It is not an Apple donation. It is from these Apple employees who are veterans. And they have done it anonymously, and it's very nicely done. And that was a beautiful event, and I commend staff for that as well. That's all.
Thank you. I see Vice Chair raise your hand, but Okay, so I have some update. I joined the ceremony at the Lawrence Meaty Park site that day. I think, yeah, our staff made a great job. That's yeah, they prepared everything, and finally I can see the gate open to the Lawrence Meaty Park site, because in the past it was always locked, and it's great to see how the landscape looks like by going there myself. Yeah, looks like, yeah, a lot of open space at that place, and I'm looking forward to see the big park in the future. Yeah, and thank you. And I see Commissioner Swami.
Yes, I wanted to give an update on the mayor's meeting. So very quickly, saw a couple of highlights. The Library Commission organized a celebration of the Diwali with a Rangoli on October 23rd, and on 24th they had a distinguished author event. They have about 186 meeting room for users, and they also actually had a sexual orientation and gender identity occasion and meeting on October 5th. They are also working on community programs and homework help for elementary school through 9th grade, and also organized on October 22nd a bilingual music festival. The Planning Commission talked a little bit about how the lots can be splitting the single home lots into multiple lots, and how some of those flag type of lots can be divided as well. From a public safety standpoint, they talked about October 26th, organizing a community hall indoors with safety issues discussion, including a dinner. The general concerns that were also being discussed were homelessness issues, thefts, violence against Asians, including Indians, on the rise, and what they should put, and thinking about potential ways of overcoming that and taking care of those issues. Lastly, with regard to bike commission, they talked about assessing the intersection of Bub Road and McClellan Road and Bollinger Road for a safety plan perspective. So those are some of the key highlights from the meeting. I must say, though, Commissioner Stanek, I really missed the commissioner meeting, although I RSVP'd due to an emergency business meeting, which is why I'm out here in Bentonville. I'm so glad that you all had a great time, and we'll catch up with you all privately. So sorry about having to miss that.
Oh, and I see Commissioner Stanek raised your hand again.
Yeah. Sorry. I think that this may be our first meeting since we have a new director of Parks and Recreation. And I would like to congratulate Rochelle on her promotion, and well-deserved, and congratulations. So glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Okay. The next one is Vice Chair Bigger.
Speaking of emergencies, I missed the mayor's meeting in November, so I will offer my services for December. Unfortunately, I had something that I had to take care of. I completely lost. I did not even think of contacting someone else to go and attend the November meeting. So I will offer my services for December, unless you want to go ahead and do that, Commissioner Stanek.
I'm already signed up for that, so I'm happy to do that one.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, looks like yeah, no more update on commissioner side.
Okay, then I'll go ahead and give mine. So thank you, Carol. Yes, I am your new director, and I am very excited to be your new director. I've worked for the city for 21 years, and I've lived in the city my entire life. My whole family lives here, so Cupertino is one of my first loves. So I'm very excited to be in this position. And a lot of it is my team. I have to give a shout out to our dear Jessica, because she has had quite a week this week. She was huge in the commissioners' dinner. She ran a poet laureate program last night with our library commission, and then she's here with us tonight. So she's had a fabulous week of doing great things. So thank you, Jessica. I would like to let you know that council did extend the teleconference meetings, which is now through December 15th. So our December meeting will be just like this. The Creekside Tot Lot opened to the public the week of October 17th. I think most of you will remember it had a creek theme and many all-inclusive play options. So that tot lot is now open. They are, however, doing some ADA path work next week before Thanksgiving, so that it's all up to ADA standards to get to that playground. It's dang cute. So I would say go out there and check it out, because you guys did a great job in helping with the different items that were put in. And so you should be very proud of that little playground. It's quite adorable. Also, we have a couple of events coming up that hopefully we'll see you at. Tree lighting, our giant community event, will be Friday, December 2nd from 6 to 8 p.m. at Quinlan Community Center. That is an outdoor event, and it does tend to be somewhat chilly, so bundle up if you're going to come out and join us. Also, we have a couple of events that are registration required events. We have Breakfast with Santa, Saturday, December 3rd from 8:30 to 11:30 at Quinlan Community Center. That event is almost full already, so get in there quick if you would like to go. We have Signing Santa, which is for our deaf and hard of hearing children. That is also a registered event. It's on Saturday, December 10th from 2 to 4 p.m. at Quinlan Community Center. And then we have our Santa visits, which are also almost full. So if you would like a Santa visit, definitely get in there quickly. That is December 10th, 11th, 16th, 17th, and 18th. They are 15-minute visits to your home. And Santa comes in a very exciting, decorated vehicle these days. It's absolutely adorable. So we have, just so you guys are aware, started to put some A-frames out at our bigger parks that have signs about some of our events and stuff. And so we're excited to see that most of these are full. Jollyman's one of them, Creekside's one of them, a lot of our bigger walkable parks. And so we're going to start doing some marketing in that way of our programs. So just kind of a heads up there. But that's it for me.
Thank you for all these good update, and looking forward to the holiday season. More fun program coming. Yeah, that sounds great. So if there's no other comments, wow. So at 7:42, I call to end this Park and Rec meeting of Cupertino City. And thank you all for your, a lot of contribution. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Night.
Have a good night.
Good night.